About a year or so ago, when Xbox started to move some of its games to the PlayStation platform, there were a lot of hands thrown up in the air. One of those hands thrown up in the air was, I can't believe Xbox is doing this and diminishing the brand. I'm going to be mad. I'm going to stomp my feet and I'm going to go over to PlayStation because Xbox has no exclusives anymore. Now, as a PC gamer, I was looking at this in my mind going, what in the world are these folk talking about? This is the malaise of the console war. And I saw some Xbox fanboys, hyper fanboys, engage in this layer. Now, what's crazy is there were PlayStation fanboys who did something somewhat similar at the time that PlayStation was wanting to move its games to PC as well. In fact, Herman Holst had to come out and give a little bit of what he called an assurance in that particular regard. This is a PlayStation blog from March 10th, 2020, where he addresses the Horizon Zero Dawn issue in terms of the game going to the PC. He said just because one first-party title was coming on PC didn't mean that every game will now come on PC. But since then, his stance has changed drastically, and many PlayStation games are on PC. In this video, I show you as well another user who was basically lambasting a former Guerrilla developer, a producer actually, and telling him that did he not know or understand that the success built by his former company, which at the time he worked at PlayStation on Guerrilla Games for Horizon Zero Dawn, was done so on the basis of outstanding exclusives, and that scrapping that exclusivity diminishes the brand value. Now, I bring this up because I wanted to go ahead and ask a question to those who, did not foresee the propagation of the PC gaming, or I guess did not know that PC gaming was sneaking up on console to finally take it over. How does it look now, seeing how Xbox has basically aligned itself to its, what I call its true identity, which is the PC gaming platform, and is now leveraging that to subvert the previous held exclusive framework that PlayStation had built around itself. What I mean by that is, if somebody ran to, say, maybe the PlayStation ecosystem because they didn't have exclusives, they went and bought a PS5 or a PS5 Pro because they wanted to play those PlayStation exclusives that were already available on PC, seeing how Xbox has basically subverted the market, I wonder what it is you're saying now. I wonder how you consider your move to have been. Let me tell you something. I've been trying my best on this channel to inform those who play on console about the world out there. It's a bigger world than the consoles. It's massive. It's huge. But the console war will not stop making noise for people to actually pay attention to what is actually existing out there. In fact, right now, as we're speaking, a lot of people are finally seeing that in this particular industry, in this market, you really, as a gamer, have to hedge yourself with what I think are options to whatever platforms you think will benefit you. Now, in this particular instance, let me show you what it is that I'm talking about. For instance, you had somebody who maybe played on, say, traditionally the console, right? In their minds, they thought if I played on either an Xbox box or either a PlayStation box or either a Nintendo box, that these platforms need to have their own exclusives that are only unique to them. But somewhere, somehow, a lot of people saw that Xbox, let's say in this case Xbox, and this is the PlayStation, and this is the Nintendo, that Xbox was moving its games to PlayStation. And so what they decided to do was they said, you know what? If Xbox is not going to hold these games as exclusives, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my move to PlayStation. And so now I've traded my Xbox in and I bought me a PlayStation because, well, if Xbox is going to bring its games, I can play all games over here. Not realizing that PlayStation gamers are looking at how they can come to the Xbox ecosystem because these Xbox games, they can use Game Pass to leverage it. Yeah, funny enough. And even those so-called PlayStation fanboys that are always detracting from Xbox and the talking heads and the podcasters have Game Pass subscriptions. Beautiful. Now, Xbox aligns itself and says, you know what? Let's go ahead and assume our original identity in where we've usually made and played our games, which is the Xbox operating system. Microsoft Flight Simulator, many people don't know this, right? But Flight Sim, right, is older than Microsoft Office. That's how long Microsoft has actually been making gaming apps on their traditional, Windows ecosystem. So they're going back old school. And they've made this Xbox Ally, which is a console that can play PC games. Now that PlayStation had been moving its games to PC, where a lot of people covered their ears when we were saying, hey man, your games are no longer exclusive, they want to go ahead and take it back, right? These people want to go ahead and say, well, no. This is not an Xbox. No. It's too late. You went and bought a PlayStation rather than going to PC and hedging yourself and waiting for the inevitable, which you kind of already saw because there were other handheld devices that were showing you indicators that this was a thing that was coming. So now that you can play PlayStation games on Xbox, how do you feel about that particular decision that you made? Was it an informed decision? Some people may say it was an informed decision from them. Some people may say, I don't want to tinker with a handheld. I thought a console was the best choice to go with. Sure. But I don't know how much longer Xbox can play the game of not letting its consoles be able to do the exact same thing right now that Ally X is doing. That, to me, is where I think the gaming industry is finally upended at the end of the day. Because what happened is PlayStation was actually doing its first-party thing, right? But it was also money-hatting a lot of games, spending money rather than building IP. And this is my biggest criticism of PlayStation. Rather than building IP that would basically be in their library, they were taking that money and taking the quick road, acquiring, content for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years in some cases. And so the industry started to grow big. The expectation for these games started to, pretty much escalate. Everybody wants a 200 million, not everybody, but people who are going to buy these single player games want a certain level of quality. There are not many of them compared to the free to play gamers and those that play live service. And so what did everybody do? Everyone's making the games to look like, you're playing a game out in your backyard. And so now that cost has gone up, a lot of these third-party developers are looking at PlayStation and saying, well, we're not doing exclusivity anymore. And even those games that were locked behind exclusivity, the Xbox gamer leveraging the PC side of their ecosystem can now have access to it. So the third-party exclusivity thing is dead. It just went DOA immediately. The first-party exclusivity side had to deal with the economic reality that there's a saturation of games everywhere. So with that saturation of games, PlayStation thought to venture out and went to PC. And at the time when we were telling PlayStation fanboys, your games are on PC, you remember what many of them said, right? They're like, it's not the same thing. It doesn't count. Well, apparently now it counts, right? Because Xbox is finally exposing what the market has been doing playing games. Oh, PlayStation didn't take their games to Xbox. What do you mean? It's not the same thing. Well, now PlayStation has basically taken its games to Xbox's domain. You weren't paying attention to realize that what they were doing was making Windows versions of their games. Can you imagine running directly into your opponent's house and trying to sit there and, create comfort? It's weird. A bear is sleeping. What, right? So the bear basically is hibernating, and guess what? You walk up in there and you create yourself a little habitat, you start a fire, you're cooking your marshmallows and all that stuff. Hibernation season's over. Bear wakes up and looks and says, yum, food. That's what Xbox has done right now by bringing this handheld to the market. It's not even the handheld and the pricing. It's the statement and the reality that these exclusivity walls have all been broken down. It was just in the little ecosystems, the console ecosystems, that the walled gardens stayed up. So now people are looking and saying, what is the best device for me to buy to escape this walled garden strategy? And they now see that it's a PC. But the challenge that, many people face is they don't realize nor want to admit that they've all been playing on the PCs all this while. The only difference here is that they lock those PCs down behind an Xbox box and a PlayStation box. So when you think about it, when you actually digest all of this, ladies and gentlemen, what's been going on here with people saying that they're jumping ship, moving platforms and stuff has been subverted. And the console manufacturers that wanted you to do that, PlayStation and Nintendo, are now basically looking like relics in a modern gaming world. And when I say modern gaming world, forgive me, it's not as old school as we used to know it. Those of us that came from the cartridge to the disc, to then finally seeing how online play and now cloud and all of the new technologies are being leveraged for gaming. That's what I'm calling that in terms of the technology. Don't go out there quoting me on some random BS. You can see now that those who are the forefront of leveraging it are the ones that are going to win. The walled gardens are all thrown out. They're dead. In fact, Some people have been talking about how do you these subscription services in terms of entertainment. Where do you see these subscription services putting their stuff on other platforms? And the funny thing is, they've all been doing it for a long time. Many people just didn't want to admit. For instance, Netflix actually features a lot of different IPs in terms of movies and TV shows from other folk. Amazon Prime sells subscription services of almost everybody else while you're already on Prime. Isn't that crazy that they basically made their marketplace a marketplace for other subscription services? Nobody ever said anything about this. They didn't lock it down to it. So from Amazon, you can watch Acorn TV, which is a subscription service that is all, that actually focuses on specific shows, I think from, the New Zealand, Australia side of things, which I have a family member. Our family uses our Amazon Prime account, right? And so there's a subscription there for that. You can also get a Disney Plus subscription. Yesterday, I found out that Apple TV also has some of its shows, and you can subscribe there. There's Stars, HBO, all of that. People never realized that the walled gardens had already been falling in entertainment heavily, and the people who are leveraging and benefiting from it are those who have created accessibility from wherever you are. So the likelihood of somebody going to go start another HBO Max subscription doesn't necessarily make sense for them. But if they have Amazon Prime and they want to go ahead and fire up a HBO Max subscription directly from there, it's easy for them to do that. I think this kind of accessibility is something gamers need to start thinking about today because it's already come their way. Thank you for watching the video. Talk to me in the comment section. Those who decided they were going to jump platforms, I can almost guarantee you that some of them are having buyer's remorse because they're seeing how that whole jump was unnecessary. As Xbox console, this holiday season, God willing, nothing crazy happens, we'll be able to play PlayStation games. Can you imagine that? Peace out.